Sunday morning, getting ready to preach at South Fellowship. I feel really blessed by this church and the way they come around us and loved us through 18 months of cancer and chemo. And I pray that I can be an encouragement to them. And also, we're preaching on a pretty difficult passage. This text is on compassion, love when it's hard, and pray that God would open our eyes to the physical and spiritual needs around us and around the world, and give us some really practical ways to engage. We'll see how this goes.
This is shocking. Okay, because let's set the scene here. Jesus is in the temple. He's surrounded by crowds of people, and there are religious people all around the periphery of the crowds. And what Jesus is saying, he's saying, beware not just of random religious people. He's saying, beware of that guy. Beware of that guy. Beware of that person. Beware of that guy. They're right there in front of him. Jesus is calling them out to their face. And we can understand why they finally decided we have to kill this guy. He's calling us out to our face publicly in our religious context. The only option for them that they could see in their unwillingness to submit to the king was to kill him. And so what does Jesus call out? This is basically in Mark 12. It's a summarized, condensed version of Matthew 23, where we have the 7 woes, an entire chapter. And he points out a few things. He says, look at these guys, that they walk in long robes. And as they walk through the marketplace, everybody has to stand up in respect. They have the best places in banquets. And this is the way it worked out, is the religious leader would come, and if all of a sudden you're having this banquet and your parents are sitting in the place of honor and the religious leader shows up, well, then you kick your parents to the side and put the religious leader in the place of honor. That's what you do. And that's got to mess with your ego over time as a religious leader. And then he goes on and he says something. He says, they devour widows' houses. And oh, there's one right now. He sat down opposite the place where the offerings were put and watched the crowd putting their money into the temple treasury. Many rich people threw in large amounts, but a poor widow came in and put in 2 very small copper coins, worth only a few cents. Jesus said, truly I tell you, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others. They all gave out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, she put in everything. All she had to live on. This widow was being devoured right in front of them, and they didn't even see it. But to see, that God would give us eyes to see people hurting around us, and give us a heart to love them and see the hurting, both physically and spiritually. And let's jump back to Mark 13, verse 1. So we walk out of this scene with the poor widow when Jesus is lamenting the fact that she gave all she had to this religious system that was devouring her. And as Jesus was leaving the temple, one of his disciples said to him, look, teacher, what massive stones, what magnificent buildings. And Jesus said, do you see all these great buildings? Not one stone here will be left on another. Every one will be thrown down. In essence, what Jesus is saying is that any system, religious or otherwise, that takes the last $2 from a widow deserves to be ripped to the ground. And may God protect this community, that this would be a place of life-giving, a safe place, a place that would protect the hurting, both here as we gather and as we go out into our communities. And may God give us the courage that when we do see people that are hurt, whether individually or systemically, whether intentionally or unintentionally, but people who are being hurt, that we would have the courage to call that out. We'd have the courage to overturn any systems, any ministries, no matter what the cost, as an expression of radical love because of the radical love that Jesus already showed us. The cause of Jesus eternal destinies and physical realities right now is worth giving our lives to. Love is hard. The cost is worth it. It's worth it because Jesus, the King of the universe, he embraced humility and he became a human. Jesus saw you hurting and he offers life. Jesus exposed injustice and he will judge. Injustice will not go on forever. He will bring it to an end. And Jesus joyfully sacrificed his life to give us life. Is love hard? Absolutely. Did Jesus love us? Absolutely. And then he gives us his Spirit to well up in us so that we can overflow in that same love to other people. And that's the privilege we have as followers of Jesus.